What's up guys, Asian here again with another build video. Today we're going to be going over the Templar healer. So still among the best class choices for healers. Templars are still definitely going to be the go-to for healers everywhere. It's not necessarily that they are head and shoulders above everybody else, but they just have so many more tools, more useful tools in their toolkit compared to the other classes. That Templar healers, generally speaking, are actually they provide that just a little bit of additional utility that the people who are min-maxing really want to get out. So Templars are you're still going to see Templars pretty much everywhere across Vet Trials teams, just not only because they are a little bit easier to play, but because of that additional utility that they bring that not all the other classes possess. So just like the rest of our build videos, we'll be going over skills, our gear. I'll talk about substitutions for gears, depending on specific scenarios. Because trials, you do have two healers, so you might need communicate a little bit with which sets which healer is wearing. Then we'll talk about CP points. Healers don't really have a rotation, but I will talk to you guys a little bit about kind of my philosophy about healing, how I approach healing. I don't do it very often, but when I do, I kind of make sure that I have a kind of priority list down. I have certain things that I want to keep in mind while I'm healing the group. So we'll talk about that rather than do a full rotation. So we'll get things started here first with our gear. So healers can now wear monster helm sets, or I should say, you can configure your gear in such a way that you're able to wear a monster helm set. So depending on the specific set combination that you're running, which sets you are wearing specifically, you might not be able to wear a monster helm set, but usually speaking, you'll be able to wear one. So in this case, you really have two choices when it comes to monster helm sets, really, for healers. You can argue there's up to three or even up to four, but I think two of them in particular stand out. So the first one is here at Bogdan. When you heal a friendly target, you have a 5% chance to summon a totem for 6 seconds. That heals you and your ally within 5 meters for 35, or in this case 35 health every 1 second. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds. Now, while 5% does seem like a small chance, you have to realize that the 5% chance for each person that you heal. So let's say you heal 4 people, that's 5% chance for each of those 4 people. And now obviously it is not additive, so it's not a 20% chance to proc, but it is larger than the 5% chance that is advertised there. So it's actually fairly easy to get really decent uptime on Bogdan this way. And now the other monster helm set that you might want to consider wearing, let's see if I can find it. I don't think it's here. Is going to be Earthgore. So Earthgore comes from one of the DLC dungeons. So Bogdan comes from, I want to say it is Elden Hollow 2. Earthgore will come from Bloodroot. So you do need to have the DLC in order to get Earthgore. So Earthgore is more bursty. So when you heal a friendly target that's under 50% health, you counter Pool of Punching Blood, which soaks up one enemy placed effect instantly, and heals all friendly targets in the area for, in this case, 33,900 health over 6 seconds. This effect can occur once every 35 seconds. So Earthgore is very, very bursty, and the cooldown is what really gets some people off of Earthgore, because 35 seconds is a pretty long duration. So not a lot of people like running Earthgore for that reason. That being said, Earthgore is still a very, very good set to run, so don't feel like you shouldn't use it. A lot of that additional burst heal really does come in handy sometimes. So if you think about it per tick, it's almost a 6,000 K tick or 6K tick every second while it's up. So it is a pretty nice heal over time. But there are some other sets that you might want to consider wearing. So the other two that I've seen kind of thrown around most often, the first one is Sentinel of Rkugamz. So when you heal a friendly target, you have a 10% chance to summon a Dormant Spider that heals for, in this case, 1185 health and restores 524 stamina to you and your allies within 5 meters every 1 second for 8 seconds. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. This comes from Darkshade Caverns 1. This is not a very commonly seen set. Generally speaking, it is not a bad set. As you can tell, the healing power itself is much lower than Bogdan and Earthgore, which is kind of why I don't really consider it too much. With Bogdan, you can heal almost 4 times as much in a given time frame. Plus, you can't have 100% uptime on Rkugamz, versus you can get, while you don't normally get 100% uptime, you can get pretty high uptime on Bogdan. So personally, I don't like Rkugamz for that reason, but it does restore stamina. So in the current meta, there's a lot of emphasis on stamina Nightblades, stamina in general. So this is actually kind of nice to help them sustain a little bit. It essentially works out to be, if you consider that it's about 50% uptime, it works out to be about 250 additional stamina regen if you're able to proc it on cooldown. So it actually ends up being pretty nice for sustained for stamina DPS. That being said, a lot of people are running Nightblades which don't really need any additional sustain, so its use is limited there. So Rkugamz, a potentially good set, but I just feel like in the current scenario, with all the high damage hits that are coming out, as well as the abundance of Nightblades, I don't need any additional help sustaining. Rkugamz kind of loses a lot of power that way, but it is still a potential option if you want to go that route. The other kind of sets are kind of lackluster. So Chokethorn is one set that I've seen thrown around a little bit. When you use the heal ability, you have 50% chance to summon a Strangler Sapling that heals you or an ally with 22,105 health here for over 4 seconds. The Spectrum Care once every 10 seconds. So the problem with this is that it only heals one person, and it's kind of random. It's a little bit smart in that it tries to choose whoever has the lowest amount of health, but it's still kind of quasi-random, so it's not very useful here. Then the other set that I've seen kind of thrown around as a potential option is Troll King. When you heal a friendly target, if they're still below 50% health, their health recovery is increased by 1548 for 10 seconds. This set apparently doesn't have a cooldown, so the kind of downside is that requirement that after you heal a target, so once you hit them with the springs, they're still below 50% health, that's when they get the health regen buff. And this isn't affected by Vampirism, so you do get the full 1548 in this case buff to health regen. So that's really nice, but again, it's that requirement that if they have to be below 50% health in order to get it, and that kind of sucks. So personally, I am not a fan of Troll King because of that pretty strict limitations. There's only very few scenarios where I would use Troll King as a healer monster helm set. So those are kind of your options for monster helm sets. Now for our 5-piece, you have several options here, so I'm just going to go over this one option. So I'm using Jorvuld's Guidance, which comes from a skill called Peak. It increases the duration of all your major buffs, minor buffs, and damage shields you apply to yourself and allies by 40%. So it increases the duration, not the strength of damage shields, as well as your major minor buffs. So any sort of named buff, major sorcery, major intellect, minor intellect, those kind of things. So Jorvuld's Guidance has kind of been increased in terms of potency. It used to be fairly decent, but just kind of on a cusp of being good. It really was better fitted for Wardens rather than Templars. But when you combine it with something like Olorime's or Spellpower Cure, which now gives Major Courage, they changed the Spellpower Cure proc Major Courage, it becomes pretty useful overall. It increases your Major Mending, your Minor Mending, Major Vitality, Minor Vitality, so it does have a pretty good synergy with healers now, especially because of that additional Major Courage uptime. Again, I think it's better suited for Wardens, but it's still pretty decent on Templar healers as well. So you do have several options if you don't want to go with Jorvuld's Guidance here. So let's see if I have a couple here. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Sanctuary. So this is kind of a niche set, so to speak. You still want to have it with you, but you're not going to be using it every single trial. It's not like a set that you can wear at every single trial. Part of it is the 2-piece set effect is max health, and the other thing is the 5-piece increases your healing received by 12% for you and up to 11 other people, but it has to be within 10 meters of you. So if you have people spread out, so for example, Asylum, Sanctuary loses a lot of its power, but in fights where you're stacked up, then it does come out, it does become an option here. The other thing too is that in terms of healing power, like the amount of healing you're doing, it's very easy to overheal in ESO, very easy. So any sort of additional healing received, you don't really need it too much. That being said, if you focus on being healing received, you can kind of focus more on Magicka regen instead of spell damage, because the additional healing received and healing done bonuses are kind of making up for that lower spell damage that you see. So that's one option here. I don't think I have any of the other sets available right now, but I do want to talk about them. So Worm is another very common set that you will find. As you can see here, this comes from Vault of Madness. It reduces the cost of Magicka abilities by 4% for you and up to 11 other group members within 28 meters of you. So that's pretty nice. You're really going to be using it more if you have Magicka DPS. If you're running pretty much 7, 8 stam, obviously you're not going to be using Worm. But it is something that I did want to mention here, just as a potential option. We're seeing Worm being used less and less, mainly because of the shift to Nightblades, who don't really need any additional help sustaining. But you should keep this set with you in case that shifts in the upcoming patches, because there might be, you never know, Sorks, Templars, Wardens even might end up coming the strongest class, in which case Worm will be needed in order to help sustain them, because they don't have as strong sustain as Nightblades. Spell Power Cure, if you don't have Olorime, because Olorime you do need to have access to the Somerset expansion. Spell Power Cure can be found at White Gold Tower, so you will need the Imperial City DLC. There are going to be some instances where Spell Power Cure is actually going to be stronger than Olorime, or at the very least more useful, and that's just because of the nature of Olorime, where the Olorime proc circle is stationary versus Spell Power Cure, where you don't have to touch the circle. Yes, the buff lasts for longer, and there's the limitation that the person has to have full health, there's also limited to 6 people, or 6 people plus pets. So it's not perfect, but you do still want to have it here just in case. Let's see. Mending is the other set, but that is a trial set here. Find it real quick. So Mending, also known as Healing Mage, is another set that you're going to want to have on your 5-piece, so active at all times. This can be found only in Aetherian Archive, so you have to do Aetherian Archive to do it. So when you use an Area of Effect heal ability, you reduce the weapon damage of all enemies within 10 meters of you by 415 for 3 seconds. Now, Mending is very nice for progression style guilds, because even though it says weapon damage, boss enemies, PvE mobs in general, they only have one stat when it comes to determining how much damage is dealt to you. So even though it says weapon damage, it just reduces the damage that's incoming to you. Now, by 415, that's going to vary how much damage is actually reduced, but it's still going to be a damage reduction. Now, it says Area of Effect heal, Orbs count, Healing Springs, Comet Prayer, those are all Area of Effect heal abilities. So as long as you're within 10 meters of the boss you want to debuff, you're able to maintain this. There's no cooldown on Mending. It is 3 seconds, which is pretty short, and it is not affected by Jorvulds. So there's that side of things, but overall, this is a potential option to run, particularly in progression style guilds where being more survivable takes precedent over doing more DPS sometimes. So just keep that in mind there. Those are your options for 5-piece sets. And these are sets that you always want to have active. So these are going to be on your body or your jewelry at all times. Now, the other set that we're going to be using, I like to call this a back bar set or a front bar set, depending on how you which slot you use it on. And that's basically you have 3 armor pieces and either the front or a weapon. So this is generally going to be a proc set. So in this instance, we have Olorime, which comes from Cloud Rest, which gives allies major courage. For the default is 30 seconds, with Jorvuld is 42 seconds. So whenever you cast a ground-based ability in combat, that's when you will create that circle on the ground, which will give everybody who steps into it major courage. There's no limit to how many people can get it as long as they're stepping through the circle, and it lasts for 30 seconds. Default 42 with Jorvulds, and you can occur every 10 seconds. So it's pretty easy to get 100% up on major courage this way with Olorime. So Olorime is usually going to be a lot stronger than Spell Power here this way. And so we have it on our back bar only, and so that allows us to basically more or less just keep on using it, when we need to. So you just go on a back bar, throw down the shards. I'll talk about this when I go over what I prioritize as a healer in order to get Olorime off. Now, there is one other set that is good for this sort of like back bar set, and that's going to be, let's find it here. It's going to be Infallible Aether. So Infallible Aether drops from all the Cragmon trials. Now, this is normally seems like a DPS set because that minor slayer on a 3-piece, but the 5-piece, your fully charged heavy attacks deal additional, in this case 950 damage, and makes you damage with fully charged heavy attacks are affected with minor vulnerability for 10 seconds, increasing their damage taken by 8%. So that is where Aether really comes into play. As a healer, You're doing heavy attacks fairly often in order to maintain your Magicka. And so when you do that, you're able to inflict minor vulnerability on the boss for 10 seconds. So that helps out your DPS. And they don't have to run any shock damage enchants. They can run double Inferno this way. That being said, though, with this new shift in enchants on Magicka DPS, you might not necessarily need to run Infallible Aether anymore. So it does lose a little bit of power with the new changes to the enchants, but it's still a very strong choice here. And for a proc set, because you can just go on your back bar, do a heavy attack, swap to your front bar, do healing after 10 seconds are up, swap to your back bar, heavy attack, and so on and so forth. But these two sets, Olorime and Infallible Aether, are the two primary back bar sets you're going to be running. There are other sets that you might want to run. So Mending technically is a proc set, but obviously 3 seconds is a very short duration. Spell Power Cure is also technically a proc set if you want to run that instead of Olorime's. But again, it's not a very good proc set because you have to be kind of on the back bar the whole time. So generally speaking, you'll be doing Olorime's or Infallible Aether, and it's always going to be a Lightning Staff, or I should say, usually going to be a Lightning Staff as your back bar set. Then your 5-piece sets are going to be something like Jorvuld, Mending, Worm, Sanctuary. A 5-piece that needs to be active at all times in order to have the strongest effect. And then, so for our other bar, we have the Master's Restoration Staff. You can go with the Asylum's Restoration Staff if you'd like. It really depends. So the Master's Restoration Staff comes from Resto Arena. And the heal of Brand Healing, the first tick of basically Healing Springs restores 258 stamina to each friendly target affected. So it'll give 6 people 258 stamina. So this helps out tanks, this helps out stamina DPS, it even helps out magic DPS because their stamina pool is generally a little bit lower. So I like the Master Restoration Staff, particularly for progression style guilds. But the Asylum Staff, let me just pull it out real quick. The Asylum Staff is a potential option if you do want to go that route. So the Asylum Staff, when we cast Blessing of Protection, in this case the morph is Comet Prayer, so whenever you cast Comet Prayer, the cost of your magic and stamina healing abilities are reduced. For a perfect staff, it's 30%. For a imperfect staff, it is 27% for 3 seconds. So this helps let you sustain by a good amount. So you can do something like Comet Prayer and then 2 Orbs, and that basically cuts the cost of Orbs down by 30 or 27%. Giving you a little bit better sustain. So you can go with either of them. I personally, again, prefer Masters for progression style guilds, but a lot of healers also swear by the Asylum Staff. So you can pick whichever one that you prefer to have to run. Now, real quick, let's talk about traits and enchants. So we're still going with Infused on our large traits and Divines on our small traits. Magicka enchants on our small pieces. And then in Prismatic or Magicka Health Stam, Tri-Stat glyphs on our large pieces. This helps give us additional health and stamina. We are giving up a little bit of Magicka, but that's okay because we are getting some additional survivability out of it. And then for enchants on our jewelry pieces, I have all arcane, but I've seen some healers run infused. It's kind of up to you if you want the higher resources or stronger enchants. So the 2 enchants that you're going to kind of be playing off of, and this is going to vary tremendously depending on what you need to prioritize and which set you're wearing. So you're going to mainly be swapping back and forth between 2 primary enchants. So spell damage is the first one, and then magic regen is the other one. Obviously, you kind of want to shoot for a balanced approach here. So I shoot for at least 2,000 magic regen and 2,000 spell damage with my major buffs up. That includes major curse and all that stuff. So right now I'm sitting at 1683 spell damage and 1861 magic regen, but when I have my buffs up, they'll cross that 2,000 threshold. So that's generally what I'm shooting for there. It's kind of fairly easy to do so, so I would recommend trying to shoot for that if you can. And of course, so this can also depend on the run that you choose. So I'm running the ritual right now, so I can actually invest a little bit less in the spell damage because the additional healing received from the ritual, that kind of makes up a little bit for lower spell damage. Now, if I was running the Action Act, which is Magicka regen, I can focus a little bit less on Magicka regen and focus more on spell damage because the Action Act will make up for any spell regen, Magicka regen glyphs that I might be swapping out. So there's a lot of flexibility there when it comes to enchants there on your jewelry. Now you could also go with something like a potion cooldown glyph, so that way you can chug potions. Most healers are Argonians. I'm a Dark Elf here, but if you're Argonian passive, if you have infused potion cooldown glyphs, you can get some pretty nice sustain out of it. And for enchants and traits on our healing staff, you can go with powered, you can go with decisive, you can go with defending if you want additional resistances. Decisive for the more Warhorn uptime, precise for more crit heals, kind of up to you. There's a bunch of different choices you can make here. So I have power here, but you can easily go again with something like decisive or defending or nirn for better spell damage. It's kind of up to you. You have to choose. One thing I do want to point out here is that a power is going to be stronger than nirn for healing, but nirn will be more useful if you have any sort of like damage abilities. So if you're kind of being an off healer, off DPS, then you're going to want to go nirn instead of powered. But generally speaking, powered is stronger than nirn when it comes to pure healing ability. And then another option here for enchants. So I have a weakening enchant on my front bar here, so that's again down above, reducing damage. So it's very useful, improving survivability. But you can go with something like Crusher if you'd like. I usually have tanks run Crusher. Healers don't normally run Crusher, so that's something to keep in mind there. The back bar, I have an Infused Absorb Magicka enchant just to help out with sustain here. Because of the changes to way enchants work, you put Blockade down while on your back bar here. You will proc the enchant on the back bar when you swap to your front bar. So by having Blockade down, we're able to maintain our Magicka with that Absorb Magicka enchant, because it will also remember that it's infused, so we do get some better sustain that way. But you can also go with something like Shock, which will help proc and concuss and thus off balance. So that's another option there for enchant there. And again, you can double up on weakening if you'd like, or you can use Crusher instead. You do have several enchant options here. One other thing that you might want to consider running are also minor breach poisons. So I don't have the recipe off the top of my head. I don't have any in my inventory, but you can run minor breach poisons on your back bar. Same deal with the changes with the enchants. You lay Blockade in your back bar and you have the poison up. Swap to your front bar, your Blockade can proc the poisons that are on your back bar. So minor breach poisons, pretty good. There are no poisons that inflict both minor breach and minor fractures, so you got to pick one or the other. So that's kind of the downside of running poisons. You either get minor breach or you get minor fracture. You can't get both. Alright, so we talked a lot about gears. Let's go ahead and keep pushing forward on our character sheet. So I am a Dark Elf, but like I mentioned earlier, Argonians are widely regarded as the best healers. So they get 9% max health, 3% max Magicka, they get 5% healing done and healing received, so that adds up to 10% healing on them, done on themselves, 5% on everybody else. But their potion passive is what really kind of makes them shine. So whenever you drink a potion, you get about 4,000 Magicka, health, and stamina. So that really helps out your sustain. So that's why Argonians are pretty nice. They just have a very nice combination of traits there for healing. But you can really go with any of the Magicka inclined races as long as they have some sort of like max Magicka. So High Elves have 10% max Magicka, 9% Magicka regen. Dark Elves have 9% max Magicka. Friends are often considered to be the second best healers. 10% max Magicka, 3% cost reduction on Magicka abilities, and then 39-60 additional spell resistance, which helps improve their survivability. So Argonians and Bretons are generally considered to be the top two choices for a race when it comes to healers. But again, you can go with any of the magically inclined races. Now for attributes, I have 54 points into Magicka, 10 into health, and that pushes my health up to 18.9k. As an Argonian, you shouldn't need to put any points into health because you get that 9% additional max health, so you can put those points back into Magicka. But for every other race, I would recommend doing 10 health, 54 Magicka, just because as a healer, having that additional health buffer is really nice to have. Max Magicka is not quite as important to a healer as it is for a DPS. You're going to be relying more on your Magicka regen and your healing done multiplier there. So that's why we can do 10 points into health, 54 into Magicka that way. Now for Mundus, I kind of already mentioned this a little bit earlier, but you can go with either the Ritual for additional healing done, or you can go with your Atronach for additional Magicka regen. So it's kind of up to you which one you want to choose. If you feel like you need to sustain and your healing power is fine, go with the Atronach. If you want the extra healing power, then go with the Ritual, and you can sustain just fine without the Atronach. So you have a lot of options here. Now for food, I am wearing Rich Mother's Potent Brew because even though I did say max Magicka is not quite as important compared to how it is on TPS, you still don't want to give up too much max Magicka. So Rich Mother's gives you some additional regen, It gives you some health and it gives you some max Magicka. So really nice to have. Now one thing I do want to take note of is I can run Witch Mothers here because I have Prismatics on my large pieces. If I don't have Prismatics on my large pieces, if I'm running like all max Magicka enchants, for example, then I would have to switch out foods or put more points into health, because at that point you're kind of sitting a little bit too low health. I'd actually be sitting at about 18k health or so on my healer before Evan comes into play. So if I didn't have those prismatic enchants, I'd probably be running Orzagar's Rip Frothguard instead, which gives you just max. Let me see if I can make it actually. Orzagar's Rip Frothguard only. Don't see it here. The Orzagar's Rip Frothguard gives you max health and Magicka regen. It doesn't give you any max Magicka, but it does give you 5,000 max health. So more than Witch Mothers, and it gives you a really nice chunk of Magicka regen too. I think it's 457 Magicka regen. So more regen, more health than Witch Mothers. You're just giving up that max Magicka. Again, it's not a huge deal, but I just like to have that additional buffer space for max Magicka because that does also make your heals a little bit stronger too. Now for our skills, we have, start off with our fun bar. Energy Orbs is pretty much a staple. You must have these four skills basically as a Templar healer somewhere on your bars. So Energy Orbs for obviously the resource return, as well as the healing. It's a really strong heal when you have, minor mending and you have your major sorcery going. You can heal for like 1.2k every half second, so that's really strong. That's basically almost 2.5k per second, so it's a really, really strong heal. Then you have Healing Springs, very nice because you can stack it on top of each other. Combat Prayer for that minor berserk buff. Extended Ritual for the nice, it's a very small hot, it's only about 500 health every second when you kind of correct for that, but it's also there for the additional Purify synergy, so it basically acts as a giant purge. It basically cleanses all harmful effects from anybody who activates the synergy, and it gives them a nice boost to their heal. So in this case, 51.4 healing. Also going to change depending on who activates it. It also helps cleanse debuffs off you, so you get to clean 5 harmful effects off of you by using Extended Ritual. Blood Altar, I like to have Blood Altar for the minor lifesteal. You don't have to run Blood Altar. This is a Resto staff. So you can go something like a Quick Siphon or Siphon's Spirit if you like for the addition for minor lifesteal, but I prefer Overflowing Altar just because of the additional synergy that it provides. Blood Beast heals for 79% of their max health in this case. It's going to change a little bit depending on the whoever activates it, but it's a lot of healing done, and you can even crit with it. So critting with 79% healing, like max health healing, it's a pretty strong heal. So not only do you get that amount of life, you get that additional synergy. It's very useful for tanks as well who are running Alkosh for the additional synergy. And then you have an ultimate here. So I default to Solar Prism for the major vein, but you can run a few different ultimates here. You can run the Templar healing ultimate, practice incantation if you'd like. You are stuck in the channel, but you can block cancel out of it if you need to move or anything like that. And then the other one that you might want to run is Barrier. Either of the two morphs, that'll give you the additional 10% max Magicka regen if you have Magicka 8 at 2 out of 2. Now for your back bar, we have Ellie Drain. This is for minor Magicka steal as well as the major breach. Blockade of Storm, this is for your off balance as well as propping your back bar enchant. Luminous Shards, so this is for the resource return as well as helping to prop Olorime. So on our back bar here, these 3 abilities, Blockade, Shards, and Channel Focus, I believe will all prop Olorime. So we're basically going to be using Shards as a way to kind of control where we want our Olorime to go down. So if we basically try to keep the Shards up at all time or we let it lapse a little bit, we can basically use Shards on cooldown and control where Olorime is going to land. And again, Olorime lasts for 30 seconds default, so it does give you some buffer room as well if you accidentally use Blockade and that props Olorime instead. Channel Focus for you get the major resolve and major ward as well as some additional Magicka regen every half second, so that's really nice to have there. Then Ritual Rebirth, this is a flex spot here. This is a very expensive skill. You can see here almost a little bit over 6k Magicka. But it is a nice burst heal. It is an AoE heal, so it can heal up to 6 people. But this is technically a flex spot here. So a couple of flex options: Purge if you need to have it. Just keep in mind that Purge only removes 2 debuffs. So if you have like a boss that applies 3 debuffs, you might need to Purge twice. You want to run efficient Purge just for the lower cost. It's really important there. You can run Bone Surge for the additional synergy as well as the major vitality from that synergy. You're only really going to be using this in Cloud Rest, but it is something that you might want to keep in mind. It's kind of up to you, especially with Jorvuld's guidance, where you get that 40% additional duration, so it's normally 6 seconds, but with Jorvuld it's 8.4 seconds, so that's always nice to have. If you want to run a shield, you can certainly run a shield if you'd like. You can run Harness or Dampen Magic. I prefer Dampen for the larger shield. So this is an option if you want to run a shield. I personally am kind of on the fence between running a shield and not. So this is definitely an option here. And those are really the main ones that you can run here. One skill I do want to mention here. You can swap these abilities back and forth, except for obviously Healing Springs and Comet Prayer, because you need to be on the Resto bar. But you can run these 2 abilities as well. So I liked the Mutagen morph. You can go with either morph here, Back Regen, or Mutagen, but I prefer Mutagen. And then for Steadfast Ward, you can go with Healing Ward or Ward Ally. So Ward Ally doesn't actually have a heal, it is just the shield. So if you want the heal, you have to go with Healing Ward instead. So it's kind of up to you which one you want to run. If you want the heal, then go Healing Ward. If you don't want the heal, then go Ward Ally. If you PvP a lot, I recommend doing Ward Ally because it also puts a shield on you as well. But again, you can move, for example, or put all to the back bar instead of Ritual Rebirth, and then put Mutagen or Ward Ally. They're not going to be as strong in vet trials, but for 4-man content, so they have DSA or something like that, you might want to run them. There's one other skill I do want to mention here. I have the wrong morph. I have Purifying Light, but you can also run Powerful Light as well. Not many Templar healers will run Powerful Light anymore. Normally it's a Stamplar that you have in group that's going to be running it instead. But that is an option if you so choose to do so. Again, not really using it too much. One other ability I do want to point out here are the other 2 abilities here under the Restoring Light. So particularly Radiant Aura and the classic Breath of Life. The Breath of Life has kind of fallen out of favor for healers, and that's because it's a change to Ritual Rebirth. Yes, Ritual Rebirth is more expensive, but it is a multi-target heal, so it's an AoE heal, so you can heal up 6 people for that 6k Magicka, versus Breath of Life, where it only heals 2 people. And Ritual Rebirth will also heal 1 person outside of the ability radius as well, so it's basically like an AoE burst for Breath of Life. So Breath of Life, almost no Templar healers run it anymore. It's always going to be Ritual Rebirth for trials. For 4-man content, you might still run Breath of Life, but Ritual Rebirth is pretty much superior to Breath of Life in almost every way, shape, and form. Radiant Aura is another ability I do want to mention here. So it does apply minor Magicka Steal to all enemies around you. So that's kind of useful. Minor Magicka Steal doesn't stack, so it's not like if you apply to 3 enemies, you get 900 Magicka every 1 second. It's still always going to be 300 Magicka, but it is something that you might want to consider running. I personally think Ellie Drain is going to be better in most cases. Trash, you don't really need to Ellie Drain everything. Ellie Drain is really there for additionally for the major breach. The minor Magicka Steal is a nice bonus, but for like trash pulls, you're not really going to need that minor Magicka Steal too much. So Radiant Aura, you're really going to slot it mainly for that minor Fortitude, minor Endurance, minor Intellect, but as a healer, you don't really need the additional Sustain. So Radiant Aura is a very, very niche use, and I can't even think of any scenarios where you use it off the top of my head. Okay, so that's all the skill stuff. So I know this video is getting quite long here, but we're almost at the end, I promise. So, talking about our CPs now, CP cap is 780, which gives us 260 points across each of the 3 different constellations. Starting off with our green CPs, we have 75 Arcana, 75 Tenacity, nothing has changed much here. That gives us 110 points, which you can split across the remaining nodes, really however you'd like. So 40 into Shadow Ward, 40 into Tumbling, and then 30 into Warlord is what I have, but you can split it up however you'd like. You can even push these two up to 100% if you'd like. Now for our blue CPs, I have a DPS optimized right now, so I'm just going to get all my blue CPs back. So if you do DPS on the side, you can certainly use like a MAC or DPS setup, but if you don't, this is just going to be healing and healing only. 100 Blessed, 100 Elfborn is basically what you want. That's pretty much it, and the remaining 60 can go really anywhere, really. So you can do staff expert because you do a lot of heavy attacks on your bar here, so you can do something like 21 staff expert. You can do something like 32 element expert. You can put some in the spell erosion. The most important are getting these two up to 100 because these are the most important when it comes to healing. Everything else is kind of secondary here, so that's kind of how you would do it. So the most important thing again is just those two 100s, then you can put the remainder however you like. Now for our red CPs, this is a kind of a very general approach to all the trials, so it is not going to give you the best mitigation for each individual trial. It's going to give you good mitigation. So for each specific trial, you might want to change your key points a little bit in order to get the best amount of mitigation for that specific trial. So I have 66 into Ironclad, 56 into Thick Skin, 64 into Hardy, and Elemental Defender. And I have 10 points into Bastion here for the Field Physician passive. Now, you won't normally be resurrecting other players. You're a healer, so you should be healing the DPS that are going to be resurrecting other players. But just in case, you never know. You might need to resurrect somebody because the DPS are doing a really bad job at resurrecting. You might want to have the Field Physician passive here to help reduce the damage you take by 15%. So just something you want to take into consideration. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, though. All right. So that's pretty much all the build stuff. Oh, and I also want to mention here, we do run spell power potions for Major Sorcery, Major Prophecy, and Major Intellect, as well as the Magicka Restoration. So we still do run spell power potions even as a healer, just for the Major Sorcery and Major Prophecy. Alright, so now let's talk about healing. So healing, there's many different ways you can approach healing. So my personal method is to kind of prioritize certain things. So obviously there are a couple of things that you must prioritize. Obviously healing is super important. Always want to be healing. If people are dying left and right, you're not doing your job. So healing usually takes precedent. But when you're not healing, you have your HOTS going down, you can start debuffing. You start focusing on debuffs. So the most important debuffs to maintain are going to be Ellie Drain for the Major Breach and Minor Magicka Steal. Particularly, the more magic DPS you have, the more important it is to maintain this. The next most important support debuff is going to be Minor Lifesteal from Blood Altar, and that's just to help out with healing. It's additional passive healing, basically. So what's not to like about an additional heal over time? And then in terms of buffs, the two most important ones you want to maintain, you can probably guess it's going to be Minor Berserk and Orbs. Orbs for the sustain, Minor Berserk for the, obviously, additional damage done. So if you're running Jorvuld's, Minor Berserk lasts for 11 seconds or so. So you have a little bit more time to do whatever you need to do between combat prayers. So you do want to try to get combat prayer down on the cooldown. Then obviously cut it up throughout Orbs. Now, for me, I like to try to keep channel focus up. They did change it so you can move out of it and you'll still keep the buffs the whole time. But it's probably better just to try to remain in it so that way you can get your minor mending. You don't have to stay in it if you obviously can't. So just something to keep in mind there. Other things you also want to do as a healer. Extended Ritual, you kind of want to try to keep that up too, just for the additional heal time as well as the Purify Synergy. That's very useful, especially in fights where you have debuffs that need to be cleansed. Yeah, and then Shards, I normally just throw a Shard on the tank. I don't really throw them into the DPS crowd. Orbs are more important for that, and they're more useful for that. Because if a tank needs resources, they need it right then. Orbs, they take time to travel, so you're normally the farthest person away from the tank because you have to be able to see where the DPS are. You have to hit them with Combat Prayer. So by the time the orb gets there, the DPS could have taken it. The tank might be completely out of resources at that point. So Shards, besides being used to prop Olorime, it's kind of there also to give resources back specifically to the tank. Now, depending on where you are in relation to the DPS, you might do something like cast Shards on DPS to prop Olorime and then double cast it onto the tank, so that way they get the synergy and the resources. That's something that you can also do. Or if you're in close proximity to DPS, you can just use Blockade, because it'll proc Olorime right, the head right in front of you for Olorime when you use Blockade. So that's another option there. So it's really hard for me to describe how I heal without actually showing you guys a video of me healing. I haven't healed in a while, but there is a video out there of healing. I believe it's a VMO that I'm healing. So just go ahead and check out that video. I'll have it linked down in the description below for you guys, so kind of see what my healing style is like and what I prioritize. I don't really like talk about my healing style, but just by looking at what I'm doing, you can get a sense of how I heal. You'll find that I typically focus more on buffing and debuffing than healing, just because the way I heal, I tend to throw out a lot of orbs. My personal philosophy is I should always have an orb out at all times, and I should always have a hot out at all times, whether that's extended ritual or healing springs or blood altar. So I'm always tossing out orbs, so that way I can focus more on buffing, debuffing the combat prayer, instead of kind of focusing in on I have to spam springs to heal everybody back up. So that is it for this video. I will try to heal more of at trials, so you guys, so I can kind of narrate a little bit and show you guys what my healing style is like. Again, I will have that link to the VMO that I heal down in the description below, so you guys can see what my healing style is like. If you guys have any questions about healing or about this build, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability, and if I don't know the answer, I'll try to find somebody who can provide an answer for you guys. I hope you guys found this video informative, and I will see you guys in the next dungeon.